All right, well, welcome everyone. We're excited to have you all here today for the IMA Student Series Accounting and Finance Professional Panel. And this is our sixth installment of, oh, sorry, someone's asking. This is our sixth installment of this session, and we're so happy to have you here. We're so happy to have our panelists here with us today. And for those that are curious about the different types of opportunities that are out there in accounting and finance, that's what this panel is for. It's for you. We do want to note a couple things. This session is being recorded, and we'll be sending out the recording after the webinar. Also, if you could please not annotate anymore and no more stamps on the screen. I'll keep clearing it, but also, please make sure that you are muted because a lot of background noise is hard to hear the panelists, and we don't want any distractions. Right on.
Oh boy, I'll pray you again.
There we go. Someone's watching the MLB playoffs there. But yeah, if you keep it on mute so we don't have any more distractions, that would be great. I'd like to first introduce our team. So my name is Tyler Skelton, and joining me today is my colleague, Mary Patterson. Mary and I are our academic outreach managers at IMA. We work with colleges and universities across the country to promote the CMA certification, which we'll talk a little bit about at the beginning, but you'll hear quite a bit from our panelists today. And then we also are here to promote our other resources that IMA has to offer to help you get ready for your career in accounting and finance. So one of the reasons we do this webinar is we want you to know about the opportunities that are out there in accounting and finance. It's not just audit or tax, which for some might be a great fit for you, but there are other possibilities out there. And that's the whole purpose of putting this together for you. So I'm just a little background. I'm based out of the Seattle area, and I work with schools shown here in the blue. Mary is based out of Pittsburgh and works with schools in the Eastern U.S. shown in the green. If you have any questions or you would like to maybe set up a speaker to come out to your accounting club or to come out to your campus, let us know and we'd be happy to set something up for you. But feel free to reach out to us as a resource for any questions that you have as it relates to careers in management accounting or the CMA certification as a whole. So here's a quick look at today's agenda, and it's a very brief agenda because we want to make sure that we have plenty of time for the panelists to answer questions. And then at the end, we want to allow about 10 or 15 minutes or so for you to ask questions for the panelists. But we'll be giving a quick overview of IMA and the CMA certification. We'll get right into the panel discussion. And like I said, at the end, we'll have some time for questions. So before we dive into everything, we wanted to take a minute to share how far along this series has come. This started out as something we started off doing locally. I think it was just a few schools in California, and we thought, why don't we expand this to offer it to students across the country? And we also did this during COVID because there were no in-person presentations, and we wanted to make sure that we were reaching out to students across the country to let them know about these fantastic opportunities available to them. So as I mentioned earlier, this is our sixth installment of this, and we've had a lot of great feedback from the program, and we just wanted to share some of the previous companies that we've had on here, but also note some of the different titles that you'll see. So you'll see for Nike, for example, Global Operations Manager. That might not be your typical accounting or finance title that you hear. But you'll see other companies like KPMG, a tax associate, or DoorDash, the manager of cost accounting. So we just wanted to share a few examples. All of the previous sessions that we've had have been recorded, so you can scan the QR code in the corner. Mary or Lisa, if you could put the link in the chat to the YouTube channel, you have access to those. So if you enjoyed this one, you can view the other sessions as well. So I wanted to first start off with a little bit about IMA for those that might not be familiar. IMA is a global association. We have around 140,000 members worldwide who are accounting and finance professionals working in business. We have over 300 professional and student chapters located in cities and campuses around the world. So what's very beneficial as a student is you have access to these networks, to these professionals, and networking is a very important part of your academic career and going into the professional world. So starting to build those relationships for people that are working in accounting and finance can give you a huge advantage as you're getting ready to make that transition from being in school to working in industry. We are in 4 regions and 13 global offices. We're headquartered out of Montville, New Jersey. And we offer the CMA certification, which stands for Certified Management Accountant, which is the global standard in management accounting. And then on top of that, we have a number of other career enhancing resources that we'll be talking about that we'll share here shortly. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the CMA exam structure, and I'm just going to give a high-level overview. Again, we want to make sure we save plenty of time, so we won't go into the major details here, but the exam is composed of 2 parts, testing your fluency in both accounting and finance. Hopefully, the topics that you see on the screen here look familiar to you. Each exam is 4 hours in length, starting with 100 multiple choice questions and concluding with 2 essay scenarios, which are essentially like mini cases. In part 1, you have financial planning, performance, and analytics. It has 6 sections. So you'll see things like different financial statements, budgeting process, internal controls, data analytics, for example. So topics that you would see in your cost or managerial courses or your intermediate financial accounting courses, that's what you'll see in part 1. And then in part 2, it's called strategic financial management. It has 6 sections. And then you'll see that it includes some finance topics. So you'll cover things like financial ratios, risk and return models, best practices in enterprise risk management. You'll also see professional ethics on there, which is important to not only IMA, but the accounting and finance profession. What's nice about the exam is you can take the exam in any order that you would like. So if you are an accounting person, you'll notice part 1 is more of an accounting focus. So maybe you'd want to start with part 1 first. But maybe you're on the finance side of things and you're more familiar, you took an upper division finance class, that might be the best part for you to start with. So it doesn't matter which order that you start with. You just, sorry, lost something there. But the best thing about the exam is you can take the exam while you're still in school. So you can earn a professional certification before you graduate. And we highly encourage you to do that. I think some of the panelists are going to talk a little bit about the benefits of taking the exam while you're still in study mode. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to our CMA scholarship program here. So this is a really important program that we have, and we want to make sure that you're aware of it and make sure that you tell your professors. IMA offers 5 scholarships per year to non-IMA endorsed schools and 10 scholarships to IMA endorsed schools across the country, which covers all of the fees related to the CMA program. And I think Mary's going to put a link in the chat that shows which schools are IMA endorsed. But the scholarship covers 3 years of IMA membership, entrance into the CMA program, and it covers the registration fees for both parts of the exam. What's also great is we work with GLIME, CMA Review, and they provide the study materials for 1 year for the scholarship. So we highly recommend that you take advantage of this. And again, you're already in study mode in school, and you can have this exam taken and passed before you graduate. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits of becoming a student member. As I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of career resources to help you get prepared for your career. And we wanted to showcase 2 of those courses that we have. So one is the Data Analytics and Visualization Fundamental Certificate and the Robotics Process Automation, or RPA series. So these courses are meant to give you a foundational understanding of these topics. And what's nice about these courses is once you complete them, you'll get a certificate of completion showing that you have completed this, but also you'll receive a LinkedIn digital badge. So for the student membership of just $25, you'll have access to these courses. And then on top of that, we probably have about 40 or so other professional development courses that are available as a part of the student membership. So we highly encourage you to look into that, especially for these 2 courses right here. These are probably 2 of our more popular courses that we have to offer. And then finally, I wanted to talk about the IMA Student Leadership Conference coming up November 9th through 11th in Detroit, Michigan. Students will have the opportunity to hear from top accounting and finance professionals. You'll be able to tour industry sites to learn about accounting operations. You'll be able to network with like-minded peers and professionals. And also you'll be able to explore internship and job opportunities in our exhibit hall. So we hope that you can make this. Reach out to us if you have any questions about attending the event for funding and see how we can help you, or see how we can help your school make sure that you get to the conference. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's panel. So for today's webinar, we have a fantastic panel of accounting and finance professionals joining us to share their insights and experience. So we'll go ahead and start off first with Mike Casey. And Mike was actually recently promoted to an associate finance manager at Campbell Soup. He is a CMA and CPA, so welcome, Mike. Next, we have Juan Cortes, who is a senior associate technology risk at KPMG. He is a CMA, CPA, and CISA. So welcome, Juan. And then our third panelist is Morgan Rodgers. Morgan is a financial analyst at Domino's and has passed both parts of the exam and is just waiting for the work experience now. And then finally, we have Eboni Wilkerson. She is a finance director at Microsoft, and she is a CMA. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to turn it over to Mary here and stop sharing my screen so we can see everyone.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. So I think this is what everyone came for, is to hear from our great panelists about their careers. So let's start out with the first question. And that is, would you briefly describe your career after graduating undergrad? Provide some details about your current company and your responsibilities within your role. So for example, I'm sure everyone has heard of Microsoft or Campbell Soup or even Domino's, but they might not necessarily understand the role that an accountant or finance person plays within that company. So to kick it off, we're going to go with Eboni. Tell us about your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone. And hi, thanks for having me here. So let's see, when I graduated college, I graduated with a degree in accounting. I started my career out in a manufacturing facility. I had no intention of pursuing a public accounting career, had no interest in the CPA certification. And so it was kind of by luck and chance that I landed my first role out of college in a industry role where I was responsible for accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, inventory management, month-end close, journal entries, and a lot of staff accountant type activities. My career progressed after graduating college into more of the supply chain and manufacturing space. I worked in a number of companies that supported supply chain, manufacturing, cost accounting, bill of materials, shipping, logistics, distribution. And so all of that done from an accounting perspective. And this is an area that I just was not familiar with while I was in school. While I was in college, all I heard about was public accounting and working for a big firm like Deloitte or KPMG or something like that. And I just knew it wasn't of interest to me. And so, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but that first role out of college kind of gave me that niche and that fire to say, okay, this is the career that I want to pursue. And so fast forward a little bit, I've been at Microsoft for the last 4 years. I came into Microsoft managing a team that was responsible for supply chain accounting. And so I remember interviewing for Microsoft and saying, well, where does my supply chain experience fit with Microsoft technology? And so Microsoft sells products. You might have heard of an Xbox or a Surface laptop or whatnot. And so there are hardware devices that do follow the supply chain process in logistics and in inventory and costing and all of that. So my experience was a great fit. And that's where I landed in the company. And then I've since shifted over to support mergers and acquisitions, what we call accounting operations. And so when Microsoft buys a company, that company has its own accounting operations, and we have to figure out how to merge them with our operations. And so it's a pretty fascinating role.
Wow, that is, you do a lot. So we'll be happy to dive more into that. Let's move now to Juan. Tell us about your career after graduating undergrad.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I know this is, you're taking time out of your day. Hopefully some of you are getting credit for this. So I graduated from college in 2020 during COVID from Oregon State with an accounting degree. So I started during the fall at KPMG, but before that I studied for the CMA and the CPA. So I took a couple exams during those 3 months. I started in audit, and then I worked various industries, which included like healthcare, insurance, forestry products, non-for-profit entities. So after a year in audit, I decided to switch to advisory, and it was mostly due to curiosity. So I'm sure, like in accounting, you put accounting here, you hear that there's three practices. There's the audit, tax, and advisory. So since I had done a tax internship, the only one left was advisory. So I decided it was like, oh, why not try the third one? So that's currently where I'm at. I'm a senior associate in technology risk within advisory. And what this entails essentially is implementing compliance programs, assessing, designing control frameworks. Essentially, like some of you may be aware of internal controls. So we help onboard, test, ensure that there's no deficiency with those controls. And that's what I do day to day with multiple clients. They're very large size clients. Some you may have heard of, others you may not have. So there's a variety of different clients I'm working with as of today. So nice to meet you all.
Great. Thank you, Juan. And then we'll move over to Morgan. Tell us about your career after graduating.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I graduated from Michigan State University in 2022, so not that long ago at all. And I graduated with an accounting degree. And I think similar to kind of, I guess maybe not Juan, but Ebony, I didn't want to go into public accounting right away. So that's kind of why I got into pursuing the CMA. And I'm happy to talk about the CMA scholarship. Definitely like the biggest advocate for it because it's opened a lot of doors for me. But right after graduating, I went to work for Stryker. So those of you that aren't familiar, Stryker is a medical device manufacturing company. So I joined in their finance and accounting rotational program, and my first role was definitely pretty standard, I guess, of what you'd probably expect from a manufacturing company. So a lot of cost accounting concepts, so absorption, overhead rates, all of that, super applicable to kind of part one of the exam. So started out in that role, did a lot of month-end close, financial reporting, things like that. And then I decided that I wanted to relocate kind of to a different area of Michigan and took a jump and decided to take a role with Domino's. And my current role is very different than what I was doing at Stryker. Even though I have a really strong accounting background, I decided to take a more finance-based role. So my role today is focused on setting pricing, specifically pricing for ingredients. So Domino's has corporate supply chain centers that supplies all of the franchisees, since all of the stores have to source their ingredients through the corporate company. So I do all the pricing at the supply chain centers. And like I said, the role is very different from what I was doing before. It's definitely more finance, margin analysis based, whereas my role prior was pretty heavy cost accounting.
Wow. I did not know that about how they did the ingredients. So, and one thing I do want to say as we go through this before I move over to Mike, please put your questions in the chat. We'll be sure to get to them. And also I want to say to Juan, we're not going to pick on you. I know two people said they didn't want to go into public accounting, but we're not going to pick on you for that. All right, moving on to Mike. Tell us about your career after undergrad.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mary, Tyler, and IMA. Good to be here. So I graduated from Temple University here in Philly in 2021 with a finance degree. I had a very non-traditional college experience, so I worked full-time actually as a welder and fabricator while I was doing my degree at night. So you can imagine I had to get very creative during the finance recruiting season when it came to selling my skill set for an FP&A job. But ultimately, I did end up getting a role as a financial analyst at Campbell's corporate FP&A team. And I actually just started my third role going into my third year with the company a few weeks ago, as Tyler mentioned before. So for anyone who doesn't know, Campbell's is a large 150-year-old food and beverage company located in Camden, New Jersey. It's a Fortune 500 company. And a lot of people on the call are probably familiar with the flagship Campbell's soup brand and the chunky brands with the Kelsey brothers during Sunday football games. But a lot of people are probably surprised to hear, though, is that we own a lot of other popular brands that you'll see in the center of your grocery store, like V8, Swanson, Goldfish, Pepperidge Farm, Cape Cod, and Prego pasta sauce. So we're also in the process actually of acquiring the parent company of Rayo's pasta sauce, which is it's a pretty exciting acquisition. It's actually the only piece of my job that my mom likes to talk to me about anymore. But my role within corporate FP&A, which is financial planning and analysis, is to sit in the center of all those brands kind of, and the supply chain and marketing and sales, and to kind of consolidate, analyze financial results and projections. And then we, in FP&A, we kind of package the story that we then report to the management of the company, CEO, CFO, other leaders around the company, to the board of directors also. And then ultimately every quarter, since we are publicly traded, we report publicly to investors, the investor community, like sell side analysts and other financial institutions and banks, and then also to the SEC. So it's a nice blend in corporate FP&A of like internal forecasting and analysis of the P&L and free cash flow, which the latter of which is really critical for evaluating how we return value to the shareholders. So I get to work very closely with executives of the company, and then also for external communications, we face the investor community, like I said, and it's critical to understand what your investors and Wall Street expect from you, and how to kind of mold that narrative. So that kind of encompasses the multifaceted role that I'm in, and it's a really exciting role, and it's a great company.
Wow, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. And I actually am going to probably start with you, Mike. The one, it is, what motivated each of you to pursue a career in accounting or finance? And what led you to pursue the CMA certification? So I definitely want to know from you, Mike, if you started out, how did we not cover this before, that you started out as a welder and then you found the world of accounting and finance? So explain how that has happened.
Yeah, so what motivated me to pursue a career in finance? It was to get out of welding. Number one motivator. But no, I mean, in that working as a welder, honestly, I loved the manufacturing business, and it was really cool and special for me to be working together with a big group of people and produce something of value. So I think from there, I learned to really appreciate seeing something that I worked on go out the door and be shipped to the end consumer. But with that, I'm very much a numbers guy, as I'm sure a lot of people on this call are, whether you're a student or a professional. So numbers combined with business really pointed me towards an accounting and finance career. And then CMA specifically, it was a certification I heard about, and it felt like a no-brainer because, like I said, I was a finance major with no accounting experience, only like the core accounting classes that every business major has to take. And this certification was kind of my introduction into management accounting. And just knowing I was interested in a career in FP&A at the time, it seemed to me that this was a critical skill set for FP&A, was management accounting. So I'm very happy I pursued it, and not certain that it was going to be relevant while I was doing it, but now that I'm in the role, I realize that it is, and I'm thrilled that I did it.
That's wonderful. And Juan, I'll move over to you. So what motivated you to pursue a career in accounting?
Yeah, so I absolutely was not even close to business related major when I started my freshman year in college. I wanted to be a physical therapist. Then so I did a study abroad in Barcelona. That's when I started like seeing how much business is involved in our day-to-day lives. And that's when I started exploring the majors within business. I had a very strong background in math. So I decided, why not look into accounting? So I decided to go the same route as Mike did, because of the numbers. Why not learn an extra language? During my junior year, I had a professor, which was for management accounting, who brought up the idea of getting the CMA for multiple reasons that I'm sure we'll discuss here shortly. And I want to give a shout out to this professor, Dr. Ackroyd, right? To thank him for giving not just me, but my classmates the opportunity to learn about the CMA, right? Which enabled me to take the exam, right? While I was in school, and provided me those skills and abilities to learn how to take an exam. And in that way, prepare me to take other certifications. So it was a big step for me, right? Just to pursue the CMA, which opened doors to other certifications as well. So yeah.
That's great. And then Eboni, what about you?
So I always liked numbers. I think it was Mike or Juan that mentioned it, but I always had an affinity to numbers even growing up. Just numbers came very easily to me. Math was a favorite subject. But still, even in high school, didn't know what I wanted to do. And truthfully, it wasn't until I took a personality test in college. In my college, everybody else mentioned their graduation year. I didn't. That's on purpose. No, I graduated in 2001, so it's been a while. But when I was in school, my advisor suggested a Myers-Briggs personality test, which would give you suggestions for a career opportunity or direction. And so after taking that, it suggested a career in banking, finance, or accounting. And so I took my first accounting course, fell in love with debits and credits, and the rest is history. So I can't tell you I wanted to pursue accounting because I didn't even know what it was in high school. I had not been introduced to it at that time. And I didn't know anything about the CMA exam. For many years. Again, I tried to take the CPA exam a couple times and I just was not interested. And so it wasn't until possibly 5 or 6 years ago that I even heard about the Certified Management Accountant exam. In a conversation with a manager that I worked for at a different company, had sort of lightly advised that if I wanted to advance my career, I should consider an advanced degree or a certification. And so I started doing some research, and that's when I found out about the CMA, and that's how I ended up pursuing it.
That's wonderful. Ebony, I hate to say it, but I think a lot of the students on this are younger than when you graduated college. So
I'm well aware. I work closely with our early and career talent here at Microsoft, and I have a passion for the community. So
love it. All right, Morgan, last but not least, what motivated you to pursue a career in accounting and finance?
Yeah, so I would say going into Michigan State, I knew that I wanted to be a part of the business school. I always kind of felt like business was going to be a good opportunity for me and something that I would really enjoy. I would not say that I'm thought of myself, I guess, prior to college as a huge numbers person. So if you feel like that, I think it can kind of change. Did not like it in high school at all. And then once I got to college, was totally fine with it. But yeah, so I got into the business school, started taking obviously all of kind of the intro classes of all the different majors and opportunities, and really fell in love with accounting and felt like, I think like a lot of people on this call said, it kind of resonated with their personality and made a lot of sense to pursue a career. So that's why I chose accounting. And then the CMA, I actually didn't know anything about kind of until my senior year. Going into my senior year, like I said, I knew that I wasn't thinking necessarily about going into public accounting, specifically just because I wasn't necessarily interested in going right back to school to get the credits and do the CPA. Not that it was completely out of the picture for me later on, but I think I just felt like getting industry experience was going to be best for me career-wise first. But with that, I didn't really want to give up the opportunity to get some sort of professional certification, especially having an accounting degree and having all of that knowledge super fresh right out of undergrad. So that's when I started researching and found the CMA. And I think a professor actually sent me the link to this exact meeting probably a couple years ago. And so got on, applied for the scholarship, and everything just really kind of fell into the place and worked out. But yeah, I highly recommend if you're still in school considering pursuing the CMA early. I think the earlier the better, the easier it is to study. So
great. And that is something we want to highlight with the CMA. If you missed that, you can start sitting for it while you're still in school. So you do not have to wait till you graduate to start sitting for the CMA. So just wanted to make sure that that was clear. So let's talk about, so we keep talking about the CMA. That's the purpose of this. Can you give us example of specific CMA concepts and skills that you actually use on the job? So Morgan, I'll start right back with you with that.
Yeah, so I guess going back to how I talked about how my two roles that I've had since undergrad have been very different. So I actually studied for part one of the exam kind of at the end of my final semester of undergrad, right up until I started working at Stryker. And so it was perfect timing because I got a really great refresher on all sorts of technical accounting, cost accounting, which is exactly what I was doing in that role. So I was super glad that I studied before that. I think specifically I talked about like absorption and overhead and all of that, but those were like the main metrics that I was looking at on a daily basis. So I think that really helped me. And then also kind of, I don't know how this coincidentally happened, but I took part 2 after kind of when I started looking for a new role, and that was more finance based and kind of relates more to what I'm doing now. So I would just say, like, if you don't know exactly what you want to do or what role you want to pursue, the CMA is definitely a safe bet because it kind of covers all grounds, finance and accounting. So
Great. How about you, Juan?
Yeah, I think so. When I was in audit, I would use a lot of the ratios, like the PL ratio, the ROA ratio, also like any like multiple variances that you learn from the CMA. Today, I use a lot of the internal control concepts that I learned from the CMA because that's essentially what I do in my day-to-day basis. Just implementing new controls, understanding what controls are applicable to what organizations, how to ensure that those controls are effective. So all of that stuff, has helped me in the long term.
Great. And how about you, Ebony?
Yeah, so again, a little further along in career, most of my career being focused around manufacturing, cost accounting, a lot of concepts in part 1 were directly attributable to what I did on a day-to-day basis in my job. But the one that sticks out the most to me is a time when I was managing a capital project. We were installing a $35 million manufacturing line, and my job was to track, debits or track savings, budget forecast, variance to budget, and were we hitting our savings target? And so there was an element along with that capital project that we had to decide, make a business decision on whether we were going to make or buy the product, right? Did it make sense to make it, or should we purchase it and then resell it? And so that the make versus buy concept and the calculations that go along with that to help you determine that business decision is probably one of the most relevant examples for me that was directly attributable and applicable, as well as calculations around payback, when investments, return on investments, how long is it going to take you to recoup your investment, and a lot of those financial models were directly attributable to the CMA.
Great. And then last but not least, Mike, what are some CMA concepts that you do on the job?
Yeah, the most like glaringly obvious one is top of the list is the planning, budgeting, and forecasting concepts in there, because that's what we do. We're financial planning and analysis, and a big piece of that is forecasting, analyzing what's happened, what do we take away from this, and what do we think is going to happen as a result going forward. Beyond that, we do financial statement analysis on a monthly basis. I just was today preparing for our monthly business review, trying to analyze some key free cash flow ratios. So ratio analysis, financial statement analysis. And then I mentioned before all the brands that we have at Campbell's beyond just the soup. So I sit in corporate, we kind of analyze the business from a holistic portfolio lens. So the concepts around performance management analysis, or I forget what the concept is actually, but that one, we're constantly looking at how the businesses are doing as a portfolio. And then to piggyback off of Ebony, I work closely in our free cash flow forecasting process with our CapEx teams. And we do a lot of payback period, a lot of investment decision analysis. And then beyond that, people I don't necessarily work with on a daily basis, but are a key part of FP&A. We have a dedicated make versus buy team within the company. So these are concepts that are covered very heavily in depth on the CMA exam, and they've been extremely useful in my career so far.
Well, that's great. I think this is very helpful for students to see that with the CMA and working within companies, you're actually helping to guide those decisions that's going to take a company forward. Or maybe go in a different direction based on the information that you're given. So I think that's a really neat thing for students to see. Juan, so we always try to do this with our student series because I think they're surprised to see that someone that does work in public accounting also has their CMA. So can you give us a little bit more insight to how the CMA has allowed you to stand out at KPMG or put you on different projects, or just what you think it's going to do to help with your career?
Yeah, I think for first most, I will obtain a bonus from my firm for getting the CMA. So that was pretty awesome.
Always good.
Um, yeah, it has allowed me to have many new opportunities and keep doors open because not just because I'm in advisory is where I will end. So just having the CMA keeps that door open more into the finance accounting side of professions. It has given me the ability to transfer between audit to advisory, and that's because my advisory sponsor saw that I had the CMA and the CPA, so they understood that I had a very good background and could pass the exams if needed to be. So that gave them the confidence to support me in my transition from practices. It still helps me in at the end of the day because we like the IT side talks a lot with the accounting side. So a lot of the times I understand the terminology they're using. I'm able to follow more easily what they're stating and what they're saying. But I think just to give my point across is like overall, any certification is better than no certification. It doesn't matter how much you use it or not. It just it gives you a different way to see things. It gives you those soft skills like critical thinking, which is very important to have when you're taking these exams.
Thank you so much. So I think now what I'm going to do is, for the sake of time, we're going to open it up to questions. I saw a lot going on in the chat, and we're going to try to get to as many of them as possible. One of the questions that did come through, and the one that I like to ask as well, now that all of you are working, what was the most, looking back, what was the most beneficial class you took in college? Or is there a class that you wish you would have taken? So, anyone want to start with this?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely the financial modeling class. I feel like a lot of the finance major, the classes are very conceptual, which is great. I mean, you need to learn the concepts. You have to be equipped with that when you go into the workforce. But you make sure you get exposed to Excel, a great Microsoft product. Shout out to Eboni. But yeah, get very familiar. You don't want to be learning how to do VLOOKUPs and sum ifs during a quarter end or during busy season in public accounting, whatever it is. You make sure you're equipped with those kinds of skills going in. So I took financial modeling, and that helped me, hit the ground running when I hit my career.
Great. Anyone else?
Fantastic. I'll piggyback off of that. Thanks for the shout out. All Microsoft apps were fantastic. Power Apps as well. For me, it was cost accounting. I enjoyed cost accounting in school. Again, the concept of a tangible product being made, and being able to put dollars to that product and understanding that every product you make has a cost to it, and then taking that into my career, where I'm managing costs for the most part and trying to reduce costs wherever possible. Direct materials, direct labor, and overhead. All of that was very relevant. And I will say there is a difference between accounting and finance. It's not the same bucket, and they're two very different career paths. And so I think it's important to understand which one is better suited for you as a person. I did many things throughout my career. I've been in my career for 22 years. I've done both accounting and finance, and I can firmly say I am not a finance person. And I always say finance is accounting is telling the story of what happened, and finance is forecasting and looking ahead to what the possibilities could be. And so if you think about planning, budgeting, forecasting, FP&A, versus accounting, it's already happened. Like now we just got to talk to it in the variance analysis and make sure we're booking it correctly for the financial statements.
Great. Anyone else have a class? Go ahead, Morgan.
I would say, I guess, similar to Ebony, cost accounting, like any cost accounting class that I ever took, I think was super helpful. But I also have to say audit, because in the moment when I took audit, I was like, oh, I'm never really gonna, use this. I don't plan on being a public accountant. But I think it's super, super useful, even if you don't plan on being a CPA or working in public accounting. Even if you do work in industry, you have to document your internal controls and keep track of different documents for SOX reporting and things like that. So I think even if you're similar to me and maybe aren't thinking that that's something that's going to be useful to you, I would say cost accounting and audit are huge. So definitely pay attention if you have those classes.
Juan?
Yeah, I would just say, even though it's really tough, it's just a whole series, the intermediate accounting series. That series will prepare you pretty well for any type of accounting role that you decide to take on. So it is tough, but it prepares you pretty well. So I'll leave it at
Great.
that.
So I've been noticing a lot of questions are coming in CMA versus CPA, and we know that they're very complementary certifications and licenses. Juan and Mike, you both have your CPA and your CMA, and according to our statistics with IMA, about 20% of CMA and IMA members are also CPAs. Do you two want to talk about, why did you decide to get both of the designations, and just a little bit more insight in how it's been beneficial to your job? Whoever wants to start.
Yeah, sure. I can start if that's okay. So I did my CMA studies while I was still in school in my spring semester. I took part 2 actually first, and then right after graduation took part 1, and then decided to pursue the CPA after. But that was really just wanting to build a broad, robust basis in accounting to kind of bake into my FP&A skill set. I wanted to be fluent in the language of debits and credits. That's what they say. It's accounting's like the language of business, and I wanted to do corporate finance in a business environment. But I would say, looking back, for me, the CPA was definitely not necessary. It was a lot of like unnecessary information for an FP&A career, but it definitely helps build that robust skill set. But if you're someone who's interested in a career in tax or audit, by all means, that's definitely a great certification to go for. But for me, I felt looking back that CMA was more depth and less breadth, I'd say, much more applicable to an FP&A career. And to me, if I see, a candidate that goes for that, it signals that it's a candidate who's serious about this career choice, FP&A.
How about you, Juan?
Yeah, similar to Mike, I took the CMA while in school. So that was just mostly for the reason that you're able to take the exam while you don't have to graduate or have a degree to be able to take the exam. And then I think the CPA it's crucial if you decide to get into the public accounting world. If you're not thinking about getting into the public accounting world, then maybe the CMA would be a better fit for you. So yeah.
Okay, great. And Ebony, this question might apply to you. So again, I'm seeing a lot CMA versus CPA. And students are saying, well, we see a lot that CPA is required, but I think for you, you noticed that the CMA actually helped you move forward in your career, and you decided to get your CMA later. So do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I can. Two parts to that. One, it's unfortunate. I'm looking forward to more companies recognizing the CMA certification as a much needed advanced education for a lot of the roles that we see here on the market. And once we get more companies on board to understand the concepts within the CMA certification that are applicable to the job, then I think we will move beyond just, CPA required for a role. With that said, yes, I had a conversation with a manager who was firmly of the belief that not having an advanced certification was going to limit my career. And I took it into, I don't want to say insulted by that, but I was like, well, I've made it fine in my career. I haven't needed a certification thus far. I mean, I have my undergrad degree and I'm advancing in my career just fine. But to get to director level and above, the companies are going to be looking for it, guaranteed. And one thing that I do somewhat regret is, one, I can't regret what I don't know about. I didn't know about the CMA, but had I known about it, I would have pursued it soon after school, if not in school. If I had the opportunity to get it while I was in school, I would have done it. And the reason for that is because that short-term sacrifice totally equals long-term gains. You have it in your back pocket, it's on your resume, you stay up to date on your CPEs, your certified professional education credits every year, and you're good to go, versus someone like me who waited 20 years into my career to pursue the certification. By then I was married, I had 4 children, I was working full time, managing a household, and oh, by the way, I have to make time to study. And so it just made it that much harder for me. I did it, right? And it can be done, but it does make it much harder. So I would encourage any student that has the opportunity to sit for the exam while in school, just get it out the way, and then you always have it.
Great, thank you. And that brings me to something that Tyler had mentioned earlier, and I want to reiterate that, is that IMA does offer scholarships, 5 scholarships per college or university for you to take the CMA at no cost. And I believe, raise a hand, Mike and Morgan, you both utilized that scholarship while you were in school, correct? Yes, so that is something, if you are interested in, if one of you wants to talk about the scholarship and what professor nominated you, I think that would help students out a lot.
Yeah, I guess I can start, but yeah, so I got my scholarship senior year, and so I kind of started studying for the exams at the tail end of my senior year. But the scholarship was awesome, like 0 out-of-pocket costs for anything, didn't have to pay to sit for either exams, and you can get an online study course that's completely free of charge, and I don't think I would have been able to do it without that. So I think, like, I know when I worked at Stryker, there was a lot of other people who were in the finance and accounting rotational program that I was in that kind of regretted that they didn't look into it, because they also were at large schools where there probably would have been scholarships. And they were having to pay kind of out of pocket and then having to wait to be reimbursed until they passed all their exams. So it's super nice to have that all completely paid for you up front. And it really has opened doors for me. I know I was only in my role at Stryker for a little over a year when I decided to make the switch and relocate and have my role now at Domino's. And I don't think, honestly, I don't think they would admit this to me, but I think I wouldn't have been able to make such a big role jump responsibility wise if I didn't have my CMA. I think it was definitely a big selling point for them to hire me.
I love hearing that. And honestly, Morgan, we've heard that from plenty of IMA members saying the same thing. Early in their career, just getting that CMA helped get them in the door. But once they were there, it also, and I think all the panelists would agree, it gives you that confidence because you've gone through that and you're able to talk about different skill sets and concepts that you understand. So for the sake of time, I know I jumped into some questions. Tyler, are there other questions that are coming in?
I mean, there were a lot of questions coming in. I think we answered a lot of those, but there was one that I thought might be interesting, especially for students right now, even if they're in their freshman or sophomore year. What are the opportunities that you all took throughout your 4 years to build your profile and knowledge within accounting? So are there things that you did during school, clubs that you joined, networking events, career fairs? Can you just maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that you did to help, maybe build your confidence and go into interviews, making those connections for your internships or jobs or anything like that?
Who wants to go first? Juan, or Mike, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say mine. Maybe I'll abstain from the questions. So I was a non-traditional student. Like I mentioned, I didn't have like a great opportunity to get involved with a lot of that campus recruiting stuff. But like I can attest to the importance of doing it because I wasn't able to do that kind of stuff. So definitely get involved in the early stages. It's all about differentiating yourself from the other candidates. For me, that was starting the CMA journey while I was still applying for roles. I had something to speak to, but for other students that have the opportunity, definitely get involved in clubs, get involved in leadership opportunities because they're highly valued by employers.
Juan, you want to go?
Yeah, so I was part of Beta Alpha Psi. I'm sure a lot of students are involved in that. And then also I was part of the Beta, which is a program where students are able to help out low-income households file their tax returns. So yeah.
Anyone else? Morgan?
Yeah, I would just say get involved. I know I was a member of the Accountant Student Association at Michigan State. But I would also say, I guess, overall general networking wise, like go to the career fairs as early as you can. Even if, you know, you don't really have any expectation, like freshman or sophomore year, I don't know if I'm going to get an internship. You never know who you're going to meet and who could end up being a connection down the line that could help you get your job. I know I went to a career fair early on and connected that was someone that was in the program that I ended up going into at Stryker very early on. So I would just say it's like never too early to start kind of networking, even if you're not even sure exactly what you want. You know, your major, if you're in between finance or accounting, you don't have to have it all figured out to start just building connections with people.
And one thing I'll say, which I think is neat, and hopefully the students know this, so you can become an IMA student member, which means you're already joining this organization. So Mike, Morgan, Juan, Ebony, they are all IMA members. And that's always a big thing that you hear about as a student, networking, making those connections. That's why you join an organization like IMA, because you will be part of something that all of the people on this panel are also members of. So that's just kind of a push for that. And there's a code that we can put in to become a student member for just $25, which I think is great to add to a resume. For the sake of time, or Ebony, did you want to add anything to that?
I added it in the chat there.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. All right. So one thing that I always like to end on is, you know, what would your advice be to your younger self as a student? Or what do you want to tell students as they are looking into their future? This is the start of their fall semester. We might have freshmen on the line. We might have graduate students. What would be your parting words of advice? So I will start with you, Juan. How about put you on the spot?
Sure. Yeah, no worries. I think just take opportunities as they come. You'll never know where you will end up. So my junior years, when I first heard of the CMA and the CMA scholarship, I did not take that offer. Later on, I was like, oh, I should have taken the scholarship that when they were offering it, and that way I would have been able to take the first exam my junior year. So looking back, I should have taken that opportunity, and then just, you know, make sure you take those opportunities when they're open, because before you know it, they might not be there any longer. Yep. And it might not be something you may want later on, but it's just good to have.
Right. Morgan, how about you?
Yeah, I think if you are interested and you have the opportunity to pursue the scholarship, absolutely do it. I know Ebony kind of touched on this, but I think the easiest time to take the exams and do it and just get it out of the way is right after you're coming out of college, if you have the opportunity to do so. So I know I'm super grateful that I just decided to do it during school and have it all done, because it's something that you'll have forever. You just have to keep up with, you know, the CP, but you get the letters behind your name and it's on your resume. And it's something that you can do when you kind of already have a good background of knowledge and are already pretty prepared to sit and start studying to take the exam. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer if you're at all interested. It makes sense to do it right out of school.
All right, Mike, how about you? And Mike, there's also a lot of non-traditional students that watch this. So any words of advice you could give to them, I think would be very beneficial too.
Yeah. The non-traditional path is definitely, it's a grind, because, you know, you have to balance the full-time work, the part-time school, or whatever the blend is of the two. And then, you know, getting this certification it's a lot. It's a monumental task, but each individual step is very manageable if you set a strict schedule, adhere to it, and then once you have the schedule, within the schedule, you got to compartmentalize, you know, be fully present in every facet of what you're involved in, whether, even if that's leisure and unwinding, like sitting down and watching the Phillies lose in a heartbreaking fashion last night to the Braves. But beyond that, it's critical to, you know, upskill with these kind of certifications, and network, get to know people, and just talking to people about what they do and who they are is how you grow and how you expand into your next role, honestly. And just pay yourself first, make sure you balance everything. Make sure you are taking care of yourself. It's not your boss's fault or your professor's responsibility to make sure that you're keeping a good balance in life. So that's your job.
I love that. And how about you, Eboni?
Yeah, no, those are great words, Mike. I think I saw a question in the chat about just earning ability with the CMA. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I wish I had gotten it a lot sooner. If I were to sit down and do the math, the financial modeling to see what my earning capability would be today, having gotten the CMA 20 years ago versus getting it 2 years ago, 1 year ago, I just got it last year. I'm pretty sure I would be further along in my career, right? I'm at a director level at Microsoft. This is a fantastic place to be in my career. However, I'm wondering, how much further could I be had I had that certification? So for each job that I took that advanced my career, having a certification or letters behind my name may have had an accelerated effect a lot sooner. So I will say, if you're just considering it, thinking about, it's almost like investing, right? Investing in stock. Like, think about the long-term effect of your small sacrifice and investment early on in your career or soon after graduating school, how much that can really impact your earning potential.
Wow, great. Tyler, is there anything I missed? I know the questions were coming in fast, but I almost couldn't keep up with them. Is there anything you think we need to hit before we turn it over with the last few slides?
No, I think we could wrap up here. I think most of those questions either Lisa answered in the chat or the panelists answered as well.
Hey, Mary and Tyler, it's Lisa. Some of the students are asking about how to get a professor to nominate you, and I just wanted to say that there is a form for the professor to complete, and we've sent the link out for that. But if you're asking about, how do you get the professor to nominate you, you tell them that you attended this webinar and that you were inspired to get the CMA, and you show them the nomination. And if you have to print out the form and take it to them and have them complete it, then by all means do that. But if any accounting professor or finance professor could nominate you, but if you're at a particular school and you're not sure who you should talk to, send an email to Mary or Tyler and tell them which school you're at, and we'll check to see if we have a professor contact there who's already actively nominating students, and we can try to help you with that.
And again, it's any college or university. So whether it's a small one or a giant, big 4-year institution, as long as it's a 4-year college, we do offer those scholarships. So yes, definitely email myself or Tyler, and we'll let you know if there's already a professor nominating, but we want you to use these scholarships.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and just wrap up here. Lisa already talked about getting nominated for the CMA scholarship. It's a great opportunity, so be sure to take advantage of that. If you're not maybe ready to sit for the CMA exam yet, I highly encourage you to join IMA as a student member. We talked a lot about the membership benefits, the different courses that you could take, being able to connect with the local chapter, or just being part of an organization, a global organization of over 140,000 members. Now's a great opportunity as a student to start planting those seeds, and you never know where your network will take you. So it's a really good opportunity for just $25. And then you'll study and pass the CMA exam. And again, if you have any questions or recommendations on providers, we can point you in the direction to get the review materials, and then you'll graduate, get your relevant work experience, and then you'll be able to add CMA to your name. And then I just wanted to leave our contact info up again, as Lisa mentioned. If you have any questions, feel free to email us or reach out to us. For the professors that are on here, I know we ran into the issue that there was a capacity limit of 300, so we apologize for that. Normally we have 1,000 for this, so not sure what happened there, but we will be sending out the recording to everyone shortly after. You'll receive an email from me, and then even another one next week, just to make sure that everyone has that. But we want to thank everyone for joining us today. We want to thank our panel for a wonderful discussion, and want to thank everyone and have a great evening. And we'll stay on for a little bit longer if you have any other additional questions.
Yes, but definitely thank you to our panelists for giving their time. And hopefully this was informative for everyone. And thank you for attending.